Hello, and welcome back to the Pure Nintendo podcast. This is your weekly dose of all things Nintendo. My name is Jemma, and joining me this week, I have the timely Trev. Welcome back, Trev.
Hey, glad to be here. What's your nickname, Gemma? You're always giving us nicknames. Do you have one?
I don't know, do I? I think I was the jovial Gemma or the, I can't remember, you guys came up with something. Jingle, I was supposed to come up with a jingle, wasn't I?
Jingle Gemma.
But it's timely that you're here because Kirk is not available this week, so I'm very glad that you're available. And also, we've got cyclones here in Australia, in Brisbane, to be precise. So there was some questions as to whether this would even be happening this week. So it's timely that we could make it work together. So thank you, Trev. We've got a big show ahead for everybody. Thank you for joining us again. We're going to talk about the Switch 2 Direct upcoming, of course. It's Mario Day today, or day of launch of this podcast episode launching, 10th of March. We've got heaps of news and games we're playing, so let's get straight into it. But Mario Day is, March the 10th every year. And if you write it out, MAR10, it looks like Mario, which I just love. um, and I wanted to give some background info because Nintendo first acknowledged this day. It was a fan made kind of thing. Like some fan noticed March the 10th looks like Mario. Let's make that Mario Day, which is awesome. But Nintendo first acknowledged it in 2015. So it's actually 10 years this year, I suppose, since it's been
Wow.
kind of an official, if you want to call it an official day, which is really cool.
I wonder how much of that stem, like, because the Wii U days were sort of dark, so they had to find
Mm.
something to celebrate.
Yeah, yeah, true. That's a good point. Yes, 2015. That'd be right around that time, wouldn't it? So, yeah, I'm glad
Yeah.
Nintendo kind of embraced it because it's a cute, it's a nice thing to do. Mario is obviously their kind of flagship character. He's huge. Everyone loves Mario. It's been around for what, 40 plus years now, I think. Maybe more. Well, yeah, when was the
Long time.
first? When was
Longer.
45 maybe by now when Donkey Kong first
Well,
came
I
out.
mean, he was in Donkey Kong, right? They called him Jumpman, but we know it was Mario,
Yeah.
so. And that
Yes.
was
Yeah.
what, 1980, 81.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, something like that. So yeah, a long time we've had Mario in our lives. I can't believe no one back then noticed Mario Day. So Nintendo does a lot of things to celebrate by having like sales and giveaways and sweepstakes and things like that. This year they do have a bunch of sales on Mario themed games. There's the usual 30% off these things like Super Mario Brothers Wonder and Super Mario RPG games like that. So good time to pick up a Mario game if you're interested. But we thought we'd tie this in a little bit to our Switch 2 Direct countdown because we've been counting down every week. It's now only, Trav, get excited, 3 weeks away. Well, 3 weeks and 2 days. So 23 days to be precise. It's sounding very close now. Is it feeling close to you or still feels like forever?
um, it's both, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Like,
Hmm.
it is getting closer, but um, I guess because we're not in the month. Like, it's
Hmm.
funny if it was the last day of March. I mean, that's not really a
Mm.
whole lot quicker, but because we're in the month, if it would feel
Yeah,
closer to me. But
that's a good point.
yeah, I don't know if
Mm.
that makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and totally. It's like when things cost 9.99. Instead of
Yeah,
$10. It just sounds cheaper, right? So
it
if I think,
does.
yeah, if the Switch 2 Direct was in March, even, yeah, because it's on April the 2nd, so it's very early April, but it just sounds like a longer time away than it really is. But yeah, only 3 weeks. It'll come up very, very quickly. So we want to talk about games, but we want to save that for when Kirk's with us. So we thought we might tie it into Mario Day and just talk about Mario specifically and how he might feature in a Switch 2 sense. We already know, obviously, Mario Kart is a thing, Mario Kart 9, potentially, whatever it's called. Do you have any kind of hopes for Mario in the new generation of the Switch?
Well, I certainly do, and I've probably mentioned it before. I'll probably mention it again until it happens, but
Mhm,
I'd like to see a Super Mario Odyssey 2,
mhm,
and I
mhm.
can give you over 29 million reasons why, and that's how
Yeah,
much the first game sold.
that's
It's
that's a lot of
been
reasons.
Yeah, it's been a bestseller since 2017,
Mhm,
and the thing is, it doesn't even have to be necessarily like Odyssey 2. but I just love that format they had where you can collect a moon and that it doesn't boot you back to, like, the hub, and then you have to jump back in the world. You can keep going.
Mm,
So, I would even like them if they took that formula and did, like, a remix of, like, Mario 64 or Mario
mm,
Sunshine, Mario Galaxy, where it just keeps you moving. There's less
that's true.
downtime because I just think that was a smart approach, and it just I think of all the other big Switch games that have gotten updates, and I mean, Odyssey did get a small update, like, you could kinda, uh like, those on your friend list or whatever could hide balloons, you could find them, but
Oh,
it
hey, nice.
wasn't really substantial.
Mhm.
So, I'd love to see, if not an Odyssey 2, and a Mario game with Odyssey DNA, somewhere in that launch window.
Yeah, me too. I think there's a really good chance of that happening for sure. And I don't know, like Odyssey 2 seems like a no-brainer just because, like you said, it sold really well and people are familiar with that as a kind of, if you want to call it an IP or whatever, like as a brand, as a name, like Mario Galaxy was, I suppose, and they made a sequel to that. They don't with Mario 3D games, they don't tend to do sequels all that often, right? Like it's Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, Mario Galaxy, then they did do a sequel to that, and then Odyssey, you kind of got your 3D World one. So it'd be interesting, but Switch 2 is also unique in that it's a sequel to a console, which is also rare for Nintendo. So it would make sense to keep it that sequel theme, maybe, I don't know. Or they could completely rebrand it and call it something new. Odyssey is just such a great name too, right? It's-
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
they gotta have Mario at launch, though. I mean, what was the last system that launched without, like, a Mario game? I think it was the GameCube, maybe, with Luigi's Mansion was sorta like the Mario game, and,
Mm, yeah.
as much as I love the GameCube, it didn't really, it was kinda competing with Xbox for 2nd place that generation, so,
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
I hope we get something new and not just like a reskin or an HD version of an existing game, or,
Yeah,
something
me too.
fresh.
Definitely. Yes. I think they'd be crazy not to do something fresh, especially because it's a new, they want to show off the power of the Switch as well. And with 3D Marios, they can do that. I mean, Odyssey looked great. It was a fantastic looking game. I mean, that was on the Switch, the humble Switch. So the Switch 2 being, we don't know how powerful it is yet, but being as powerful as it is, more so than the Switch, they can do all sorts of cool things. So I'd love to see what they could do. I'm thinking, Trev, because this seems to be a Nintendo thing lately. Nintendo seems to have 32 players online at once in certain games, right? I wonder if
Okay,
there's
yeah.
going to be, I wonder if there's going to be something with Mario where they have some kind of online thing that brings together a whole bunch of people doing, I don't know what activities they were, or they could be. And I don't know if I, I don't know that I want this, but even Mario Brothers Wonder had a pretty decent online system. Like you could play with friends and see little ghosts of people running around. I wonder if that'll be a part of it as well, like just to make it more of
Uh,
a even Mario Party, right? The new Mario Party or the
yeah.
latest Mario Party had a very robust online kind of thing where you could join people. What do you think about that?
I'm of 2 minds.
Hmm.
I did like in Wonder, like, how you could see
The
the ghosts or
flags.
whatever they called
Yeah.
them, I can't remember the term, of other
Yeah.
characters, and how, like, if, they could, like, save you if you were, like,
Mm.
in trouble. That was fun.
Yeah.
A lot of times I remember dying trying to save someone and vice versa. People were helpful, which I
Mm.
liked. But then I think back too to, like, to Mario Maker, and their online implementation with multiplayer was so choppy, and
Mm.
it was like the internet in its infancy, like, in the mid-90s or something. It was almost unplayable. So if they're gonna
Yeah.
do some kinda 32-player Mario, they really, really have to get their online structure up and humming on day 1, and I
Yeah.
just don't know if
Definitely.
Nintendo can do it, because traditionally, they have trailed behind. As
Hmm.
big a fan I am as Nintendo, and as much as they often excel over their competition, online is the one area they have not.
That is true. Mm. Yeah. They've definitely been lagging in that. That's a bit of a pun,
No
actually,
pun
isn't
intended.
it? Yeah. Yes, it leaves a lot to be desired. So hopefully, yeah, you'd want to get that right. And thankfully, games like Mario Kart seem to work well with the online. And that's a driving game that's pretty fast paced. So I don't know why some games work really well and others just don't. Like, what were we playing? Dr. Mario, right? And that was
Yeah,
terrible. That was a terrible experience.
and
It
that's
was
it's not like that's a new cutting edge game. I mean, that was
no.
what, 64?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was really, really slow, really laggy. And was it 3 or 4 of us playing? Was you, me, Justin, was Katie also playing or just the 3 of
I think there
us?
might have been 4 of us. It
Mhm.
might have seemed like 3 because I played so badly. It might have seemed like I was a CPU, but, um
Yeah. And then were you online when we played it was one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games. I don't know if it was the Cowabunga collection that might have
Yeah,
been. That
yes,
was extremely laggy also.
it
So,
was. I hear it's gotten better,
okay.
so
Well,
I
that's
don't
good.
know.
Yeah. So different games work well, and some don't work very well. So yeah, you're absolutely right. They definitely need to get that right. Um, I just have a feeling that that will be something they will introduce into Mario or continue with Mario. I think just seems to be the trend at the moment. This online connectivity. I don't know. 32 just seems like the number they throw out at the moment in various games. What was the game I was talking to? Wasn't it last week with Kirk? There was a game that had 32 players. I can't remember what it was now. But yeah, or was it Xenoblade? The new Xenoblade or the remake of the Xenoblade game?
Oh, Chronicles X, yeah, that
Yeah,
rings a bell.
that's got some sort of online component with I thought it was 32 people as well. So yeah, it seems to be a trend. Wouldn't be surprised if they bring that in. But yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what Mario will bring bring to the Switch 2. I'm just thinking it's got to be something. Yeah, if it's Odyssey 2, it's got to expand a lot more on the universe that they've created, and it can't just be more of the same. Really, I mean, it could be. I mean, but you want it to be bigger and better, and maybe bolder in some way, just because it's been what 8 years now since Mario Odyssey, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Odyssey was an early game on the Switch, and
yeah, very early. Yep.
they've had plenty of time to, come up with new ideas and, new worlds, and that's the thing too, Odyssey really excelled in the locations. It wasn't just, like, more your grass and desert and snowy lands. They were,
Mm,
like, new kingdoms
yeah.
that were just, like nothing we've seen in the Mario universe, and I think that's really what went a long way to making it feel like an Odyssey.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it was beautiful to look at, very creative, so much to do and collect, like you said. Yeah, it was just amazing. So yeah, um, if you're a fan, let us know. And what's your favorite Mario 3D game? I guess if you're listening, would that be your favorite, Trev? Mario Odyssey, or do you have a soft spot for like Mario 64?
Oh, see, this is tricky. I
It
really
is.
wish Nintendo had an official Blue Sky account, because I don't know
Mm-hmm,
what type of, responses they're getting on Twitter. I'm no longer on Twitter, but,
hmm.
there's my hope with Switch 2 that Nintendo comes to Blue Sky, but
Yeah.
I it's tricky. I know it sounds cliché, but I could say several different ones for different
Mm-hmm.
reasons. Like Mario 64 is so nostalgic, and
Mm.
that's a game I got to play, even before it was officially available. I think I shared this story before, but I got to play an import copy, and it's not like I was
Cool.
a writer back then. I mean, I was a teenager. It was just through sheer happenstance.
Yeah.
But that impressed me because it was, I mean, 3D was new for the genre, basically.
Mhm. Yeah, very much so.
Um, Looking at it objectively, I realize, the camera's not as good. There's elements that haven't aged as well, but I mean, it's like the Mario game on my heart. But I mean, I also love Sunshine too, and having
Mhm.
a brand new area, and uh, I mean, even talking about Odyssey. I mean, that still might be the Switch game that's impressed me the most on a sheer fun level. 8
Yeah.
years later, and I mean, Mario Wonder, it's a 2D game, right? But it's up there with Mario 3 for me. So I don't know. It's hard to it's hard to pick one. I mean, do you have a favorite for I know your favorite 2D is still from the Super Nintendo, but do you have a favorite
Yeah.
3D?
Um, it is a tough question. It really is. Because even, things like Galaxy was so
Mhm.
unique, and looked beautiful, played really well. I think
Might
I
have my
love
favorite soundtrack, Galaxy.
Oh,
Amazing
yeah.
music. cute.
Yes, yes, beautiful. Sunshine, I love how they all had different mechanics. You know, Sunshine obviously had the water mechanic. Galaxy had that the star, you know, collecting and shooting and running around, you know, gravity based mechanics really.
Yeah.
And then Odyssey had the, you know, Cappy, of course. So each one is very different in its own way. I mean, yeah, I don't even know if it's possible. I don't know if it's possible to pick a favorite because, yeah,
I
I
know,
played
this is
Mario
getting
64 at the time and spent a lot of time with that and loved it, of course. And yeah, like you said, it's maybe not aged as well, but that's because it's what, 30 odd years old. And
yeah.
yeah, it just, that's the style of the time. That was 90, whatever it was, 96, 95. What year was that? Could be the 90s.
96, yeah, is when
Yeah.
it came out, I think, in North America. 64 came out in September, I think,
Hmm. Yeah.
and I forget when it came out in Japan. It was before that, but
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time with Sunshine and Galaxy. So maybe like it's easy to say Odyssey because it's the newest and the maybe the biggest, the shiniest.
yeah.
But they're all good and they all have value and
I mean,
yeah,
heck,
sorry.
3D World. I love 3D World too for bringing back,
Yeah. Yeah.
Peach as a playable character, and
Hmm. Hmm.
ugh. The more I think about it, I'm remembering things from different games that, yeah,
I love 3D World because it kind of combines the 2D and 3D elements so well, and
yeah,
it's so much fun, so much fun. Both of them, the one on the was it there was a 3DS once, 3D Land, and
yeah,
then
3D Land.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
great
yeah.
on the 3DS.
Ah, so good. And the thing about Mario is it's more than just running around and jumping and getting to the end of the level. There's all the things to collect, there's all the hidden areas. It's just so fun. There's hidden secret levels, of course. It's just insanely fun and I think it's that feeling. This is what Nintendo and Mario in particular has always been about, right? The feeling of joy, of just experiencing something and being happy. And that's what I love
Yeah.
about Mario games. So, yeah. So happy Mario Day, everybody.
Mm.
Do we have anything else to contribute to that conversation before we move on to some news?
I'm still thinking about Mario. I know it's not 3D, but I just want to shout out
Yeah, go for
the
it.
new series.
Hmm.
I know
Oh,
they
yeah.
have familiar elements, but I
Hmm.
remember the first time playing co-op on the Wii with my
Mm.
wife,
Hmm.
and that was just so much fun and bouncing off each other's heads. And I know you can't do that in Wonder anymore, but it was
Yeah.
it was so chaotic and it was so fun. And I didn't even care that it was standard definition graphics. It was just like it was that joy, like you were saying.
Hmm.
So
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like my least favorite Mario game is still probably greater than 90% of all other games.
Yes, me too. I love the new series, honestly. Um, the ones on the DS as well were really good. The Wii, of
Yeah.
course, I played so much of that. Even the Wii U, yeah, New Super Mario Brothers U and U Deluxe on the Switch. I mean, I've told you before, that's like one of my top three played games on the Switch. Like, I spent a lot of time playing with the kids. It was just our go-to
Mm.
for many, many years. It's just fun. It's just super, super fun. We've completed it many, many times. Um, and it's just one of those things. It's like a familiarity. It's comfort. It's almost like a comfort food in a way. Does it sound bad?
Yeah,
But you know what I mean,
exactly.
right? Yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
great. Hmm. Yeah, we love Mario. We love Mario around here. That's for sure. Well, let's move on to some news then, unless you have more Mario stuff to add, of course.
I could, but we probably should get moving.
I know we could dedicate a whole episode to Mario. Honestly, we really could. But I am very excited to see what's next for our Mustachioed Plumber. Always something new and exciting ahead. So yeah, we'll see. But what's in the news? And there is some Mario news as well, I guess, in a way. But we'll start with this amiibo update because we haven't had an amiibo update for a while. There hasn't been any new amiibo to buy for us, right? So my mini update for me is that I've moved my amiibo to a really better place in terms of shelving. I've got a better shelf.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and they look really neat up there. So sorry, you
You have to
guys.
take a picture
I'll
and
have to
throw
take
it
a
in the
picture.
YouTube vid.
Yeah, I will. But in the news, there is a Amiibo lawsuit that's been happening, and Nintendo has won said lawsuit. And I didn't even realize this was happening. But of course, there's Amiibo the figures, and then there's Amiibo the cards. and I think there's like hundreds of these cards, right? They're mostly Animal Crossing related. Is that right? Do you know much about these?
Um, I do collect the Animal Cross. Well, the first series of them, which that alone I think is 100,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's multiple series beyond that, and there's been some others too, like that Mario sports game had a line of amiibo cards, and
Oh, cool.
I remember what was the Pokemon Fighter on the Wii U that came with an amiibo card.
Oh, right.
Um,
Pokemon. Oh, not Unite. No, that's on the Switch, isn't
no, it's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, it's
it?
also on Switch. They re-released it,
Oh,
but
okay. Hmm.
yeah, they're out there, and it doesn't surprise me that there's counterfeits because people ruin everything. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you don't go up against Nintendo. Have you been following the news? Nintendo wins their lawsuits. I mean,
Yes, that's right. They do. Absolutely. So,
and how much of the fault is Amazon for? I don't know what their screening process is with their sellers, but
yeah. Yeah.
eh,
So, yeah, this was on Amazon. Apparently, Amazon has shut down the sellers' accounts ahead of filing the original complaint. So it's been down for a little while. But yeah, I don't know what their screening process is like. It must be pretty open if you can sell counterfeit cards. I'd be pretty annoyed myself if I bought something counterfeit off Amazon. I thought I would have been able to trust that. I don't want to get fake cards, right? Like they probably look fine. They probably maybe to the like to the untrained eye, you can't even tell. Like I know when my kids were collecting Pokemon cards at school, kids would trade them, and suddenly my kids would come home with like, "Oh my gosh, I got this super rare card," and they were really excited, and it turned out to be a fake. Um,
oh,
young, yeah, and when you're a kid and you're young and you're naive, I suppose you don't know, but once you know, right? And you can tell with some of these fake ones, they have different fonts or different like I don't know, something is off about it. But
and
mm,
that's the thing. Even if they work, like they can do, you know, chips or whatever
mm,
to make them act the same way,
mhm,
but it's not legit. I mean, it's the same thing with like emulation. If you buy a repro card, it might work, but if you're a collector, it's not the same. And forget the legality of it, right? Just from a collector's point of view,
mm.
I don't see what the appeal is of it. But
Yeah, and making them wouldn't be an easy task. I mean, I'm sure it's easier than counterfeiting, money, but to make it look legit, isn't that a bit of work? And how much money they're making out of it, honestly? I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. But yeah, apparently it was 2023 that Nintendo and Amazon filed a joint lawsuit against the counterfeiter. So Amazon was on board with this from Nintendo's perspective. So they must have been just as surprised that this was happening. Um, yeah, and Nintendo's now won the lawsuit. So, like you said, you don't go up against Nintendo, right? And even Amazon to that extent, like they're giant companies, right? With heavy duty lawyers. So I don't know. I wouldn't take them on.
what was it on The Simpsons, Gemma, when you were talking about counterfeiting money? It made me think of Homer's like, I can't take his money. I can't print my own money. I have to work for it. Like, do you remember that? Uh,
Don't remember that one actually, strangely enough. I have to work.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
Sounds like a Homer, though. Yeah, it's crazy. Anyway,
Uh,
hopefully people, listeners, you've not been affected by fake amiibo cards. Let us know if you have. Um, What else is the news? Well, speaking of Mario, and this is good timing. So there's two new games that have joined the Nintendo Switch Online collection, and they are Donkey Kong from 1994. This is the Game Boy version, and Mario's Picross also from the Game Boy, and that's a 1995 title. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense to have some Mario love on the Switch Online collection for Mario Day. So these are available now, so you can go and play these. Have you tried these at all, Trev?
I've tried one of them. In fact, I have one of them.
Oh,
Real
cool.
quick, Jim, I just looked it up. It was
Yeah.
half decent proposal. I think it's when Artie offered $1 million
Oh, yeah.
to take Marge. But
Yeah.
anyway, back on topic. I have Donkey Kong
Oh.
on my 3DS. I
Mhm.
do remember that game as when I was a kid because even then I was into magazines, and I remember I think it was like an electronic gaming monthly
Oh, yeah. Mhm,
uh, buyer's guide, and they did like at the end of the year, game of the year for each system.
mhm.
And Donkey Kong was their Game Boy game of the year for '94 or whenever it came out. and it caught my mind because I'm like, "Oh, it's just a Game Boy version of, like, Donkey Kong, like, on the NES,"
Mhm.
but no, it builds so much beyond that,
Yes, it
and there's
does.
just so much more game, and so it kinda caught my radar. Of course, I was a late Game Boy adopter, but, yeah, I got it on 3DS, and, definitely, if you haven't played this one, or even if you had and you just wanna experience it, on a bigger screen or, with save states or whatnot, do
Mhm.
check it out because it's a great game. I think it's, you ask 10 people, probably 7, 8 of them would have this in, their top list. It's highly regarded.
Yeah, I was not aware of that until it came out on the Switch Online either, because I have played it on the Switch Online just yesterday. And you're 100% right. It starts off just like the classic arcade game. So you go through the classic levels that we all know from 1981, and then it becomes more, right? Like you have to collect keys and you have to jump on enemies. It's a bit like the Mario vs Donkey Kong puzzle game series, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's sorta the building blocks of that in a lot of
Yeah,
ways.
feels like it. It really does feel like the precursor to those games with the mini Marios. There are no mini Marios in this one, but yeah, those sorts of games. But yeah, I mean, I've only played it very limited amount of time. I hadn't played it before. I thought exactly like you. I'm like, oh, it's just the classic, but I'll give it a go anyway because I like the classic. Why not? But yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot more to it. So definitely give it a go if you're into Mario or Donkey Kong. It's great. Yeah, it's really really great. I love what they've done with it. And Mario's Picross, of course, I mean, Picross. I love Picross. Are you a Picross fan?
I'm not usually, well, except for in, the pages of P&M, we
Yeah,
have our little
we do. We
pick
do.
wrestling, but, I will say, and I haven't played this one, that if I was gonna play a Picross game, it would have to be Nintendo themed. Like,
Mhm.
wasn't there, they had one on the, was it 3DS or DSi? It was based on, like, Twilight Princess, Zelda Picross. I don't
Oh,
know if you remember that.
I don't know.
Um, I think it was a freebie from Club Nintendo back when they had that,
Yeah, yeah.
and I enjoyed that. I can't remember if I even reviewed it. I'll have to look it up, but anyway, um, there's a lot of Picross games on Switch,
Oh,
right? And
yeah.
I
Mhm.
know there's big fans of it, I mean, so
Oh,
it's
yeah.
cool that it's there.
Yeah. I'm definitely a fan. I loved it on DS or 3DS just because of the stylus. It works super well to just point with the stylus and, fill in the squares. If you're not familiar with Picross, yeah, it's a grid-based, I guess, a puzzle game where you have to use numbers alongside the grid to fill in the squares. And a picture is revealed when you fill in all the right squares. And you put X's in the squares that don't have that aren't part of the picture, basically. And it reveals this cool picture. So Mario's Picross is just, yeah, Mario themed or Nintendo themed pictures that you're revealing. So if you know what Picross is, you know exactly how it works. But yeah, it's from 1995. It works super well. I had a quick go at it last night. I'm a big Picross fan. I haven't played Picross in ages, but yeah, you can come back to it anytime and just enjoy it. So two pretty good games, I'd say, for release. They're not Mario.
Nice.
It's not Mario Odyssey, but it's
Well, not many are, but
no, no, that's right.
yeah. I
Exactly.
looked it up, Gemma. It's
Hmm.
My Nintendo Picross: The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess,
Wow. Oh,
and
that's
I
cool.
actually I had my wife wrote it up. Look at that. I
Nice.
don't so,
That's cool.
yeah.
Did she score it?
We gave it an 8. It was a free game, so how do you give it a
Yeah.
score, right? But,
Yeah, it's tough.
um,
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome.
now I feel sad because it's lost to time. Hopefully, they
Yeah.
resurrect it somehow.
Yeah, that would be cool. I would love to play. I must have missed that one. Yeah, that's awesome. Very, very cool. Let us know if you're a Picross fan, listeners. Let's move on to some tunes. Speaking of The Legend of Zelda, this week's music soundtrack edition to Nintendo Music was A Link to the Past, which is super cool. Did you have a chance to listen to this, Trev?
I did.
Mm-hmm. What'd you think?
I love that game, and,
Mm-hmm.
I love those tunes. I was mostly a Genesis kid, right,
Mm-hmm.
for the 16-bit era, but, um and I probably said this before too, so apologize if I'm redundant, but the A Link to the Past is one of the games that made me a late adopter to the Super Nintendo
Mm,
because I
mhm,
remember the first time I played it. And I love Zelda on the NES, but for whatever reason, I had gone the Sega route. But I remember being wowed by it, and a large part of it was actually the music
mhm,
because let's be honest, the Super Nintendo was turning out high quality tunes, certainly a higher quality than the Sega Genesis was.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember, like, being in the Lost Woods and that it's like, "Doo doo 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 doo," and it's like, it was just like, not awestruck, but I don't know. Like, I would just put the controller down once the screen was clear of enemies, and I would just listen.
Mhm.
And, of course, now on with the music app, you can just loop it, which is actually
Yeah,
what I did. I looped that very tune because
right.
that's only like a 45-second tune or whatever, but
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's not the longest soundtrack. It's only 46 minutes in total, um,
yeah.
comprising 31 tracks. But
I
that's good.
remembered it longer in my head.
Me too. But I guess they use it really effectively, just changing, different areas have different songs and they must repeat it, I suppose. But it never sounded repetitive to me at all. So it's interesting that it's only 46 minutes. But yeah, it's beautiful. It's lovely. And like you said, for a 16-bit, early 1990s system, they got a lot out of the sound on that system. And that was one of the standouts, was A Link to the Past. Beautiful game. I remember, yeah, playing it, I always talk about the rainy start of the game. I just love that
Ah,
rainy. Yeah.
yes.
So cool. So cool. Yeah, it's beautiful.
And, talking about this, Gemma, I hope
Mhm.
that, soon to follow might be A Link Between Worlds, because that has a
Mm,
lot of the tunes that are, like, remixed or, you can see nods to the Link to the Past music in that, so
absolutely.
make it
Yeah.
happen, Nintendo.
Yes, please. And I think, these soundtracks, when we're talking about Nintendo, Super Nintendo or the NES generation of games, like last week or sorry, the week before was Super Mario Brothers 2, which was a very short soundtrack. And when you think about the cartridges that they came on, and obviously they had a very limited amount of space. And there's all when it comes to Link Between Worlds, it's, a decently long game for that time. Obviously has really good graphics. That's all taking up room. They only have a little bit of room for sound. So to pack in that amount, um, that quality, that level of quality in that small, physical space on a little computer chip, whatever, uh, you know, it's really saying something. They maximize, and Nintendo still does this really, not so much with sound, but when we look at the Switch and how well some games, like how great they look and how well they run in terms of, there's no dropouts when we're looking at things like Mario Odyssey, even though it's 8 years old. Nintendo's always been able to squeeze the most out of its systems, right? Just maximize,
Oh,
this,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And not just aesthetically, but even, like, optimization, like,
Mm,
you
hmm
download a big Nintendo game, and even the biggest game might, take up a certain amount of space on your memory card or whatever, but
hmm
compare that to some of the third-party ones that are
mm,
even bigger, and you're like, "What are they using this space for?" Like, Nintendo
yeah.
really they don't waste the
No,
space.
no, they do not. There's no wastage at all. And this just shows they've been doing that since right at the beginning, and they continue it to this day, which is awesome. So yes, if you are a fan of Link to the Past, check out the soundtrack. It is on Nintendo Music. It's a free app for anyone with a Nintendo Switch Online account. So the soundtracks grow each and every week. On a Monday, they release a new soundtrack. It's it's growing quite substantially now. We've got heaps of great music. What's your favorite to date? Do you think, Trev? Do you have a favorite?
Favorite soundtrack
Yeah,
on the app?
on the app. Yeah.
Oh, okay. My favorite soundtrack would probably be Skyward Sword
hmm
because I love the orchestrated I love Zelda music anyway, but I love the orchestrated. But the one I was most excited for are the ones that resurrect those obscure things like the Wii,
Mm.
Weather Channel music
Yeah.
or
Yes.
something like that. It's not my favorite, but it's still been finding those in, like, random playlists are what gets me the most excited.
Yeah. Yes. I love that too. It is, and it's something that will pop up and it's like, "Oh, I forgot about that."
Yeah.
And there's so much
Do you have
nostalgia.
a favorite?
It's tricky. I probably listen to maybe Breath of the Wild the most, I'd say. I like, and Pikmin's also good, Mario, of course. I like that they do playlists as well. So I was listening to the whatever it's called, the sleepy time or good night playlist, whatever it is. It's more like
Yeah.
they take songs from different soundtracks, put it into a playlist for you. And in terms of the sleepy time one, it's like more relaxing music to help you go to sleep. They've got kind of your pump up ones, which like the boss battles or whatever. So I like that side of it as well. I think there's something in each soundtrack that really is quite unique. But I think Breath of the Wild, if you're looking for something grand, and Skyward Sword as well, something kind of grand and bigger in its sound, and something that you can lengthen. It's already quite long, but some of those songs that go from maybe 3 minutes by default, and you extend them to 15 or 30 minutes, and they sound great, and they don't sound repetitive, and it's like, wow, this is cool. So I
Mm.
probably like that more so, but I do love, like last week's Mario 2 was just a nice surprise. I hadn't thought about that soundtrack in a long time. And I think I mentioned on the show that I went straight to the end credits song because it was just so lovely. I love that song. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's beautiful. So yeah, I love it. Well,
that's
let's,
nice. I
yeah.
want to give a shout out too to discovering music for games I don't own.
Hmm.
Kirby Star Allies. Even though I love Kirby,
Ah.
um,
Hmm.
I never picked up that one. Like I love Forgotten Land. That's my one of my favorites. But
Hmm.
I missed over Star Allies for whatever reason, and I think it was the Powering Up playlist had a
Mm.
ton of songs from that game, and I'm like, wow, this game's got awesome music. Where was I when it came out? I don't know.
Yeah, that's so cool. And that's why the playlists are good too, because it does mix it up and you get to hear things you might not have gone to that soundtrack, just by yourself. But then you hear the
Yeah,
songs and then maybe you want to play the game. So yeah,
I
it's good.
do. I do.
Yeah. Cool. Yes. Well, listeners, let us know your favorite soundtrack if you have one. Let's move on to our next piece of news, which is Way Forward is bringing Sigma Star Saga, which is remind me, is this a Game Boy Advance game, I think, originally? Is that right?
Yeah, it
Hmm.
sure was. It was kind of I think it was a little bit later GBA game. I think the DS might have been out when this came out.
Hmm. Yep. And they're doing what they're calling, I guess, a deluxe version, right? A DX version. And they said something like it's like they would have if they could do patches back in the day. This would be, and so it's like the ultimate version of the game. And they've made all these cool changes, and it's going to be physically released as a Game Boy Advance cartridge, right?
It is, and
Yeah.
I suspect. Don't quote me on it, but it wouldn't shock me if it ended up finding its way to digital fronts as well. But obviously,
Mm,
right now they're appealing to the collectors who like physical product. Like
mm,
us, right?
yeah. No,
And
they do mention that in their press release. They do say it's
oh,
coming
did they?
to.
I wasn't sure. I
Yeah,
thought
it
maybe I
says.
read something, but
What does it say? It'll also be coming to modern platforms, but that'll happen a bit late. So they are
oh,
planning.
there you go.
Yeah, they're planning to do that. We don't have a date, of course, but pre-orders for the Game Boy Advance compatible, excuse me, Game Boy Advance compatible cartridge are open now. You can pre-order that right now, so that's pretty cool from limited run games. So yeah,
It's
it's
such
pretty
an
great.
interesting hybrid too, to have like a game that's part shmup, shoot 'em up, and then part RPG.
Mm,
I
hmm.
feel like n- you know, the game was. I haven't played this game, but I remember reading about it in Nintendo Power and
Hmm.
and elsewhere, and it was highly regarded. Not every game can successfully meld genres,
Mm,
but
yeah.
this was one of them, and I'm glad it's coming back into the light because Way Forward. I mean, they do great work.
They do. Yes, they do. Shantae and other games. They've been around a long time. They're a great team. And hopefully we'll have a chance to talk to them as well at some point.
I
Yeah,
hope so. Yeah,
yeah, that would be
stay
cool.
tuned.
Stay tuned. Yes, we'll get on to the guys and do a nice interview. But yeah, it does look really cool. I haven't played it either, to be honest, but it certainly looks good. And I love shmups and RPGs, so for me, it seems like a great combo. So yeah, we're very interested to see how that goes when it comes to modern consoles at some point. But yes, we'll talk to the team and dig in and get some more details about that one as well. What else have we got? The Video Game Hall of Fame finalists have been revealed. Now, Trev, I didn't know this was an annual event. Is that right? What, they choose one game every year to be added to the Video Game Hall of Fame? Is that how it works?
Yeah, is it 1 or is it
Oh,
3?
maybe it's
I
three. They've
don't
got
know.
12 finalists, so maybe they choose
Yeah,
three out of the
I
finalists.
think
Yeah.
the top 3 maybe?
I,
Yeah, the 3 games that received the most public votes, uh, count as 1 ballot. Oh, in the final okay. So, it sounds like maybe it's sorta like how they do all-star voting for, like, sports, but
mm-hmm. It's an
I'm not
interesting.
entirely sure. It's one of those things I've seen the past few years, but I've never paid a whole lot of attention. I think the reason this one jumped out, is because GoldenEye on the
Yeah.
64 is one of the nominees.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely.
Um,
Of
and
course.
honestly, I don't know if I'd pick that as much as I enjoyed that game, but
hmm Yeah, I would love to see what else
yep.
is on that list. I don't know if you know of the games already in the Hall of Fame, but I would assume there are other Nintendo games in there.
Oh, yeah. I probably should have looked. I was mainly just looking at, this year's nominee.
Mm.
I'd probably pick Frogger myself
Yeah, I was
because
gonna
I feel
say
like that's
there's some tough competition.
influential, and I also remember last week's show when you were asking Kirk about, Seinfeld, and of course, Frogger was immortalized on Seinfeld when George Costanza was trying to,
Yes.
move the Frogger machine.
Yes. Classic. Absolute classic.
Yeah, it's an interesting mix. I wonder if Kirk's played the 1977 handheld football game from Mattel. I feel like that was pretty popular when I was really young.
Yeah, right. Okay. hmm I'm not familiar with that one, but I definitely know Frogger. I think everyone knows Frogger. And it looks like
Yeah.
Angry Birds is in there as well for some reason.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, they're fun. I mean, I got a couple of their games. I like the film, but I don't
hmm
know.
I guess it's like the impact it's had on the industry, maybe, or but Angry Birds certainly was popular when it released, right? Like everyone was playing Angry
Yeah,
Birds, so maybe it's that popularity, how much it impact
maybe.
it had on
I mean, I'm
society.
picky, I guess. Like, because even as much as I like GoldenEye, like I'm not even sure that's the best Bond first person shooter on the 64. I think World is Not Enough
Mm.
maybe is a little better. I feel like that has to just be because of its impact in the console realm,
hmm
because there
Yeah.
weren't a lot of first person shooters at that time. But I mean, I was rocking a 3DO in the mid 90s and they had a ton of first person
Right.
shooters that I think were great. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting. Well, speaking of first person shooters, let's move on to the games that we're playing because I am playing a first person shooter in the form of Turbo Overkill, which I don't know if you have heard of this. You would have heard me mention it briefly last week. I said I was going to be playing it for a review, and now I have been playing it. I'm not a first person shooter player generally, I'm just not very good at them. But this one is fun. I'm having a good time with it. It's set in the future. It's like a neon city kind of situation where there's some kind of terrible disease that's ravaging the human race. You play the role of I guess, some kind of bounty hunter assassin type of person who's taking out all these mutated people and trying to find a cure for this disease. There's some AI involved as well. There's this giant eyeball that kind of uh, taunts you. That's the kind
Yeah,
of
it looked kind of creepy.
it is creepy. Yeah, it's kind of creepy. Um, but in a good way. It's pretty well made. It looks pretty cool. Like it's a good looking game, I'd say. And the music really is a standout also, actually. It's quite good tunes in the background, quite meaty, you know, heavy guitars and beats, sort of synth beats over the top. It suits the atmosphere quite well, I'd say. And obviously you can pick up different guns and change weapons, and you can jump and dash and all of that sort of thing. But the thing that stands out for me as a first person shooter is that apart from shooting, you have because you're some sort of cyborg or what's the word? You're a human with like add-ons kind of thing. Like you have robotic parts to you.
Well,
So
according to the description, it's
mm.
half metal, half human, all murder machine.
Yeah, there you go. That's the perfect description, honestly, because your leg opens up and a chainsaw comes out and you can slide around on the ground and chainsaw anyone in your path. It's really satisfying. It's quite fun. It's my
I
go-to
take
move.
it it's not an E-rated game, I take it.
No, definitely not. It might be T or it might be even more than that. I think you have to put it. Did you put your age rating in when you were checking out the
Oh,
usual?
yeah, I just looked, yeah, it looks like it's M.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty graphic. There's lots of blood. Not for the kiddies, but it's fun. And yeah, like I said, this chainsaw mechanic is for people like me who are not so good with shooters, like I'm just not good at the aiming. I don't know, just never been my thing. To have this weapon where I can just slide along the ground really fast and just chainsaw people in my pathway, it's really fun and satisfying. So I appreciate that touch. Yeah, it kind of gives it a bit more than just your usual shooting elements. Of course, you can stand from a distance and try to snipe people as well, which I try to do, but it's hard. Then they see you and they shoot at you, and it's like, oh. But yeah, it's really good. I wish there was a map. I think would be my only complaint. There's no map, and I get lost easily in these games. But generally I've found my way through pretty well. I backtrack a little bit. Sometimes it points you in the right direction, but not consistently. So there's a few things like that. But yeah, like I said, it looks great.
Mm.
Sounds good. If you're a first person shooter fan, you will undoubtedly love it. Um, yeah. So I'll write up my review and get that online during the week. So yeah, keep an eye out for that one. Not much more to
I'm
add.
surprised there's no map because even
Yeah,
early
me too.
first-person shooters, more often than not, had a map.
Yeah, I really wish there was a map. It frustrates me because I
It's
don't
not
know.
like buried in the options or somewhere.
I couldn't see it. Oh, I could try again, but I did look for it. Normally like you press the plus button and you get a map or something. There are a lot of options to be fair, and that's a good thing in a way, but it is also a little things are a little hidden. So, you have to dig really deep to find like even just the controls, like the buttons. I'm like, how do I do this? And to find the controls, you have to go into like 3 levels of menus to get to it. It's like, oh, the fonts are also an issue, I have to say. Like, I don't know what font they're using, but it's really hard to read, even on a big screen, and even when you're close to the big screen. It's just a weird font. And
Oh,
some of the screenshots are a bit blurry. Like if you're looking at I don't know if this is deliberate. I don't know if it's because it's ported. I think it's a Steam game, but there are some what is it like? Maybe when you're upgrading yourself, because you can upgrade your parts, it might give you a little screenshot of what that looks like. Or I can't remember. There's screenshots in certain elements of the game, and they look blurry to me. And I'm like, I'm not
mm.
standing far back, and I don't wear glasses or anything like that. I'm like right up at the screen. I'm like, this is blurry. So I think
Are
some of
you
the
playing in handheld mode or on your
no,
TV or both?
On the TV, yeah. So,
Wow.
I will say that maybe it's not optimized perfectly, I would say is potentially what's happening there. It doesn't like, the
Mm,
game is fine and it runs I think it runs at 30 frames per second. I haven't noticed any slowdown there, but it's just some of these screenshots, not the gameplay itself, the little inset that comes in when you're given information just looks a bit blurry to me. So I think there's
mm.
something happening there. And the font, yeah, what else was there? Something else I was going to say. I think that's it. Yeah. So those are maybe mildly expensive to some degree, but certainly don't take away from the gameplay or the action. That's all pretty intact. So yeah, that's my story. Any other questions for me? I'm
No,
playing.
I'll wait to read your review.
Yeah, I am playing another game which I just started, and it's called Urban Myth Dissolution Club. And it is how would you describe this? This game is really fun. I'm really enjoying this game. It's a bit like I would say Emio crossed with Ace Attorney. It's that kind of style. It's like not a visual novel, but it's like a point and click type of adventure where you're
Mhm,
investigating urban myths. So the story is you're a girl, a student actually, who comes across. She's kind of got this special power where she can see what she thinks are ghosts. And she goes to this urban myth dissolution center or club, whatever it's called, to find out why this is. She gets roped into working for them. It's kind of funny in a way. She's a it's very Japanese. She's a sweet Japanese girl, um, very innocent and lovely and kind. And she gets roped into doing this work, but she's learning a lot and she's using her powers, and it's to solve these mysteries basically. And so you go through these episodes, they're called, and each episode is a new mystery to solve. You've got a kind of person who helps you. She drives you around, and you can kind of bounce ideas off her. There's a social media aspect where you look at a phone and look at people's comments, and try to find clues. Um, it's well done. It's very fast paced. You have to, there's points that are the Ace Attorney kind of side of it. I think is where there are points where you have to, or points in the game where you have to kind of fill in a statement like, I think this like blank happened to this blank by doing this blank, and you've got a whole series of phrases to choose from, and you have to kind of use
Like
your
Mad Libs.
like what?
Oh, it's like Mad Libs. Did you have those in Australia?
No, no, I didn't.
Oh, they're like little stories and they'd have blanks where you have to like give me a noun, give me an adjective,
Yeah.
give me a verb.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like that, exactly. You just have to choose, what it is that you think has happened, and then you solve the mystery basically. And it's really fun. It's really cool. Like, I don't want to give spoilers away, but the first urban myth is the man under the bed, for example, where people that creepy feeling of someone being under the bed, right? That's a myth that started, and it's like someone's that's happening to someone, and you have to use your powers to work out what's going on. And it's a really good reveal at the end. Quite creepy in parts, quite scary. I don't know what this one's rated. I'd say it's probably T as well, if not M. But it's graphically really well done. It's kind of using more of a pixel based approach, and so it looks, but it's not doesn't look retro exactly, but it does in a way. It's really well done. I love that the characters have come up the front, when they're talking, and it's really clear who's talking. I mentioned this in a review of a different game a few weeks ago. I couldn't tell who was talking because it didn't differentiate. This one does, and it's really good. Um, there's some choices to make. There's puzzles to solve. It's mostly point and click though. You go through a room, you sort of look for clues, you talk to people. Yeah, so it's a good mix of those genres, I'd say. So yeah, I'm still working my way through that. That review will come later after Turbo Overkill. But yeah, one to look out for if
I,
you're a fan of Ace Attorney or Emio or both. I'd say this is probably up your alley. What were you going to say, Trev?
oh, I've experienced that urban myth with
Oh yeah,
somebody on the foot of the bed, and it was my cat. So
yes, yeah, yeah. That's funny.
I did just a quick question because you
Yeah.
mentioned, uh, and obviously don't answer if it's going to spoil anything, but you
hmm
mentioned the girl was seeing what she thought were ghosts.
hmm
Are they not really? Is there more to that?
There is more to that. I don't think it's a spoiler. It's revealed pretty early on, like in the intro, that she's not seeing ghosts. What she's seeing is like echoes of people of what's happened in the past. So if someone was in your room, say a person under your bed, you can go back later and you can see them kind of standing there and more or less what they were doing, if that makes sense. So it's like an echo of what
Okay.
person did. And they look ghostly, and she can't see them without, she has these special glasses that she puts on, and that accentuates her power. And so she can see, no one else can see this. And she just assumed they were ghosts, but they're more, yeah, it's more about the past, really. So she uses that past
Oh,
element to solve clues, like to see what happened and who was there and what was going on, and where things are. It's really interesting. Yeah. And it's a decent, I
mm,
think episode 1 took me a couple of hours to get through. And I think there are 6 episodes. So I'm working through episode 2 at the moment, and there's, yeah, a couple of hours to each one. So you're looking at, a good 12 to 18 hours of gameplay there. Yeah, so it's a really good story that seems to be unfolding. There's a bit of a mystery about the director of this club, what his intentions are, what his motivations are. Yeah, there's a more to it that I'm unraveling as I go. So definitely one to check out. I think if you're a fan of that genre at all, it's really good. The music's pretty good. It looks really nice. Yeah, yeah, definitely going to give this one a good score at this point, unless something happens in the remaining episodes. But yeah, it's doing pretty well. But I'm super interested in what you're playing, Trev, because I just put a post up on our website that, for the games that are out this week on the eShop. It's a weekly post that we do, and the main game that Nintendo was highlighting this week was Suikoden I&II HD remaster, which looks like you're playing.
I am. I was hoping we would have got a code. We didn't, so
Did we?
um,
Dang it.
I
Hmm.
can't guarantee that I'm gonna get a review up, but I'm happy
Hmm.
to talk about it on the show
Sure.
as I play it for fun. I was gonna pick it up local. My store didn't have it, so I ordered it from Amazon yesterday, and less than 24 hours, I got it delivered. So
Wow.
it
That's
was like it was there this morning. It was weird. Like they take a screenshot when they leave it on your porch and it was like dark out.
Mm.
So I'm like, wow,
Right,
that was
right.
weird.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, I wish Kirk was on this episode because I think these would really be his type of games.
Yeah, I think so too. Mhm.
Definitely got a lot of the the melodrama and stuff like that. But I've played both of these games on the PlayStation,
Mhm.
and stupidly, especially for the sequel, I traded it into GameStop decades ago for probably a few bucks, and
Mhm.
now it's a highly sought after game. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad these have been re-released, so I can access them, legitimately, and not
Mm.
just through unsavory means.
Yeah.
Um, both turn-based RPGs and very character driven. Um, there's obviously the story of, it's kind of like conflict, war. It's not necessarily anything you wouldn't expect within RPG tropes, but what I really like is the characters feel you get a lot of their personality.
Mhm.
Like sometimes I'll review, and Kirk too, will do like those Chemco RPGs,
Mm.
which are fine. They're usually solid enough, but oftentimes I don't remember the characters because they're not very distinct. Um, these characters all show a lot of personality. I feel like you get to know them, you kind of feel for them or dislike them depending on, which side they're on.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because ultimately you're trying to you can get up to like 108 allies
Right. It's a lot.
and characters that will fight alongside you, not just sit, at your home base as NPCs. You have a party up to 6, which I really like because a lot of RPGs, you know, 4 would be the max and sometimes even less. So with 6, it gives you more options for combat. And then once you build up your home base, I don't want to get too far ahead, especially since I'm only a couple hours in,
Mm. Mhm.
even though I've beaten it before. But you can sort of mix and match your party. And that to me is my favorite thing. Just having access to so many characters that I can actually play as.
Mm.
So,
That's
um,
cool. It sounds a bit Fire
yeah.
Emblem-esque, really.
Um,
Is it comparable?
sort of, yeah, in certain respects, I suppose.
Mm. Mhm.
It's not it's not tactics like that. It's traditional
Right.
turn-based, but
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
yeah, I can definitely see some themes. Um, how thematically how they might be linked.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Why did this one not come to Nintendo consoles back in the day? Do you know?
I do not well when the first Suikoden came out, which I think was 96.
I think so,
It was an early
yeah.
RPG on the PlayStation. It was before even Final Fantasy VII.
Right.
And I'd have to imagine maybe with the cartridges, it wouldn't be practical for the 64.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, so I don't know. But this game looks better than ever. It's not a perfect HD update because sometimes they tweak things that maybe didn't need to be, but by and large, it's impressive looking. The music has held up beautifully. Um, yeah, listen to I don't know if I'm sure you can find the soundtrack on YouTube.
Mm.
Terrific tunes. They really it shows an attention to detail and care that I appreciate. Really augments the adventure, and it's good at evoking feelings, I guess, which
Nice.
is good for a story driven game because at certain points you want to be, uh, you know, full of vigor, and then other points you want to feel kind of, like you're melancholy, trying to absorb what's going on. So other points you're going to want to feel tense, and I feel like the music really fits that.
Perfect.
And what's cool too, having the sequel, and I'm sure it probably works similarly with this, is you can actually, if you had a save file on your memory card from back in the day, if you beat the first game, you could transfer that over into the sequel. So I'll be interested to see how that works here in the Switch package.
So what does that mean? How does that help you in the sequel?
So, okay, well, I don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't played it, but you're going to see some some carryover.
Okay.
In
That's
other words,
cool.
not that you need to play the first game, you could play the second game. In fact, you can choose from the main menu. You can jump into the second game
Right.
and go for it from there, but it'll mean more to you if you have played the first game.
Oh, that's cool.
You'll
That's
get something
nice.
more out of it, and, even though it is a different tale, you're gonna see some of the same characters even
Right.
very early. And I'll just have to leave it at that, partly because I don't
Yeah.
wanna spoil, partly too because 'cause I'm trying to remember now. I'm going back, well over 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a nice touch though. I like that. That they somehow link in a way. That's really cool. That's neat. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is other games have done that too, right? Like some of the Zelda handheld games there and
Mm.
Pokemon, but
Mm.
I feel like, Suikoden was one of the early ones.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, especially for a mid-90s game, really. Or late. I guess the second one came out in 98, but yeah, still, that's really cool. And they were, yeah, I mean, they were CDs, right, on the PlayStation. So
Yeah.
we used the
And
memory
you would
card.
know it to listen to the music, not to
Mm.
harp on that, but
Yeah.
just beautiful. Like when I was getting the game, um, I asked my wife, I'm like, "Do you remember this game?" It's not two players, so she hadn't played it, but she was looking at footage. She's like, "I don't think so." And then I pulled up a track. I'm like, "I bet you recognize this tune," because I remember she had heard it just like in the background and be like, "I like that tune." So
Oh, right. There you
this
go.
would be a great soundtrack to be on the music app because you could
Yeah.
just loop it and listen to it.
Could it be? Like, it's a Konami game, right? So does Nintendo only
Have
put
they had any third parties on the app yet?
don't there was one random game. No, it was published by Nintendo though. It was a third-party developed game. What was it? A couple of weeks
Yeah,
ago. Yeah. But I think they're all published by Nintendo at least. Mm,
I guess they'd
yeah.
have to reach out to Konami and
Yeah.
find out.
Yes. That would be cool. I'm curious though. I might have to give it a listen just on YouTube or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Trying to
Again,
find.
I don't know if I'm gonna review it just because I wanna take my time and
Mm,
like, there's options at the start. You could pick easy if you want an easy time. I didn't do that because I wanted the tension of the battles. I have good memories of, getting down to the nitty-gritty. You have a party of 6, you'd think it'd be easier, but I remember some of the bosses, I'm down to, like, 2 characters and clinging to life and hoping I can beat them. So, I wanna take my time, but, maybe I'll do an opinion piece or talk about it more on the podcast at the very
yeah.
least.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, Golden Sun was the one I was thinking of. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that seemed third party-ish to me when it came out. I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." But yeah, I think it was published by Nintendo. Hence why it
Mm,
was added to the list. But yeah, that was a cool addition because it seemed a little bit outside of Nintendo's realm, more or less. But yeah, I don't think something like this would be on there, unfortunately. Um, That's awesome. Thank you, Trev. Yes, I mean, still happy to hear about your opinion, of course, even if you don't do a full review. But yeah, because it's
mm,
a game you've obviously purchased and want to enjoy without the pressure of having to rush through it in time
yeah.
for a for a score, you
I
can just
do have a review game too, but we'll have to talk about that, next time.
yeah, that's okay. Yes, no, we've chewed up our hour pretty easily today. So thank you for joining me this week. Did you have anything to add before we do close things off for the week?
Um, yeah, I just wanted to thank I wasn't on the show last week, but, for the 100th episode, we got some nice comments that I read, and I
We
tried to like them
did.
all on YouTube.
We did,
So I
yes.
always wanna thank people who take the time to do that, because especially if I'm listening on YouTube, I'm not gonna try to type with my remote or whatever to leave a comment, so
Yeah, that's
I
true.
appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, it is. We do appreciate it. Thank you. We love all the likes and subscribes and the comments especially. So thank you so much for taking that time. Because yeah, if you're watching on the TV, that's a really good point. Or you're watching or you're listening to it while you're walking, whatever. Um, it's only if you're on your phone, maybe, or on a laptop or whatever, that you can actually type in a comment. If you're on the TV, it's a bit cumbersome, isn't it? Really?
That's true, or
Yeah.
listening from, like an echo,
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah,
Alexa or
yeah, that's
whatever.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So to take the time, leave a comment. We really do appreciate that. Thank you. It does mean a lot to us. We do put all our love into this show and to the magazine that we do as well. So it means so much to us to get that feedback. Yeah, so if you want to hear more from us, please head on over to our website, purenintendo.com, for our news and reviews. You can also support us at patreon.com/purenintendo, which gives you access to our magazine, our printed magazine. The latest issue has just gone out recently, so we'll be getting to work on our next issue soon. So if you want to jump on board, please head on over to patreon.com/purenintendo and support us. You can also follow us on Blue Sky, as Trev kind of mentioned during the show. It's our main social media channel. So head on over to Blue Sky to follow us and keep up to date with what we're doing. But I think that's it for this week. So thank you, Trev. Thank you, listeners. And until next week, game on, everybody. Bye.
See ya.